Bryan Kohberger and his former professor were once connected by classrooms and research labs, but now their names are linked to a chilling crime that shook a community to its core. What secrets did the quiet, brilliant student hide, and what insights does the professor reveal for the first time about the mind behind the tragedy? This is a story of intellect, obsession, and a darkness that no one saw coming. Bryan Kohberger had always been described as a quiet, unassuming student, the kind who moved through the halls of the university without drawing attention to himself. To most people, he seemed ordinary, blending seamlessly into classrooms filled with ambitious students and eager learners. Yet those who observed him closely noticed something different, a level of focus and precision that set him apart. He had a methodical way of taking notes, asking questions that seemed small on the surface but revealed an underlying depth of curiosity. Professors admired his analytical mind, often praising his ability to see patterns that others missed. He excelled in criminology, a field that demanded patience, attention to detail, and the ability to anticipate behavior, and he did so with a quiet intensity that was both impressive and unsettling. At first glance, there was nothing in his demeanor that suggested danger. He volunteered for research projects, participated in group discussions, and maintained a polite, approachable presence. Yet beneath this veneer of normalcy, there was a meticulousness that few understood. He kept his life tightly compartmentalized, revealing only what he wanted others to see. Fellow students sometimes remarked on his unusual habits: hours spent in libraries analyzing case studies, notebooks filled with observations that went far beyond coursework, and a level of detail that suggested an obsession with understanding human behavior in extreme situations. It was a fascination with the mechanics of crime, the why behind actions, rather than the emotion or morality. His professors recognized his brilliance, but some also sensed a subtle intensity that bordered on discomforting. There was an air of detachment, a capacity to focus on problems with such single-mindedness that it sometimes felt as though he were observing the world from a distance rather than participating in it. They recalled moments when he would dissect a case study with clinical precision, noting every step, every decision, as if he were conducting an experiment rather than studying history. It was this variability that made him stand out academically. Yet in hindsight, it also painted a chilling picture of a mind capable of calculating actions with exacting care. As news of the crime later emerged, those who had known him began to reflect on these traits with a mix of disbelief and fear. How could someone so intelligent, so precise, and so promising become associated with a tragedy that shook the nation? The quiet student who had once impressed professors with his intellect was now seen in an entirely different light. The same qualities that had made him a standout scholar, the analytical mind, the attention to detail, the curiosity, now took on a darker significance. The line between genius and danger, so subtle at the time, became painfully clear in hindsight, and the world began to grapple with the unsettling question of how well anyone could truly know the person sitting beside them in a classroom. The night of the crime began like any other in the quiet city. Streets were calm, homes were secure, and neighbors went about their routines, unaware that everything was about to change. When authorities arrived at the scene, they were met with a reality that was chilling and incomprehensible. The crime scene was methodically staged, leaving investigators to confront a level of precision that suggested careful planning and forethought. Every detail, from entry points to evidence placement, seemed designed to communicate a message while minimizing the chances of discovery. It was clear immediately that this was not a spontaneous act, but a deliberate, calculated execution. As the investigation unfolded, the community struggled to comprehend the horror. Families who had lived in the area for years found themselves questioning their sense of safety and familiarity. The idea that such a crime could occur so close to home was terrifying. News outlets reported the details with urgency, and social media amplified fear and speculation. The city, once known for its tranquility, was thrust into a state of anxiety, its residents searching for answers in a reality that made no sense. The meticulousness of the act suggested a mind deeply familiar with criminal behavior, someone who could predict police procedures and manipulate a scene to their advantage. Authorities worked tirelessly to piece together what had happened, examining every minute detail for clues. Security footage, forensic evidence, and witness accounts became fragments of a puzzle that only grew more complex with each revelation. The pattern of the crime indicated someone who not only understood the mechanics of criminal activity, but had studied it extensively. applying that knowledge in a frighteningly effective way. Investigators noticed inconsistencies that hinted at both careful planning and occasional risk-taking, a duality that made understanding the perpetrator even more difficult. Meanwhile, the public watched in horror, their curiosity and fear intertwining. Rumors spread, and theories multiplied, some based on fact, others fueled by speculation. Friends and acquaintances of the suspect struggled with disbelief, trying to reconcile the image of an ordinary, even exemplary individual with the reports of extreme violence. Every new piece of evidence challenged assumptions about the person responsible, forcing the community to confront a reality that was both shocking and incomprehensible. By the time law enforcement made a breakthrough, it was clear that the crime had been executed with a chilling blend of intellect, patience, and detachment. The calculated nature of the act suggested someone who had spent time considering consequences, weighing options, and preparing for every possible scenario. The city, now forever changed, was left to grapple not only with the tragedy itself but with the unsettling question of how a seemingly ordinary student could commit such a deliberate and devastating act, leaving a community haunted by fear and disbelief. Months after the arrest, one of Bryan Kohberger's professors finally agreed to speak publicly, breaking a silence that had weighed heavily on the academic community. The interview revealed details about his personality that no news article or social media post had captured. The professor described a student who was intensely curious, always seeking to understand the mechanics behind human behavior. To him, Bryan was brilliant, disciplined, and capable of dissecting complex scenarios with surgical precision. In the classroom, he was focused and methodical, approaching every assignment as if it were a puzzle to be solved. He absorbed information quickly, identified patterns others overlooked, and applied logic in ways that impressed even the most experienced instructors. Yet the professor also revealed a subtle discomfort he had felt during their interactions. There were moments when Bryan's curiosity seemed to go beyond academic interest. His fascination with violent crime, once strictly theoretical, occasionally took on a personal quality that was difficult to ignore. While most students studied criminal cases to understand justice or societal trends, Bryan analyzed them almost clinically, examining not only what happened but how and why, with a precision that was unsettling. The professor admitted that he had occasionally wondered if such intensity combined with detachment could ever manifest dangerously. At the time, it was only a fleeting thought, one that seemed unlikely in a person so immersed in structured academic work. The professor's account added a layer of complexity to the narrative that law enforcement could not provide. He described Bryan as someone who meticulously organized his work, yet also someone capable of compartmentalizing emotions and interactions in ways that made him difficult to truly know. This duality, brilliant and detached, curious and calculating, offered insight into how a person could outwardly seem ordinary while harboring a mind capable of extraordinary and disturbing acts. Public reaction to the interview was intense. Viewers struggled to reconcile the image of the quiet, high-achieving student with the violent crime he was accused of committing. The professor's testimony did not excuse the actions, nor did it fully explain them, but it provided context, shedding light on the intellectual and psychological factors that may have played a role. It revealed that intelligence, when paired with obsessive curiosity and detachment from empathy, could be a dangerous combination. For the community, the professor's revelations were both illuminating and frightening. They painted a portrait of a young man who had been a puzzle from the beginning, one whose brilliance masked an ability to calculate and anticipate with chilling accuracy. The interview left a lingering question: how many signs could have been noticed? And how much of Bryan's mind remained hidden until tragedy forced the world to see it? As investigators delved deeper into the case, the complexity of the crime became increasingly apparent. Each new piece of evidence revealed layers that were both baffling and chilling. What initially seemed like a straightforward investigation soon evolved into a tangled web of calculated decisions, subtle misdirections, and moments of inexplicable recklessness. Authorities discovered patterns in the timeline, small but significant details that indicated meticulous planning. Yet some actions suggested risk-taking that contradicted the otherwise precise execution, leaving experts puzzled. It was as if the perpetrator was balancing a careful strategy with impulses that defied logic, a duality that made predicting behavior nearly impossible. Forensic analysis uncovered traces of effort to evade detection at every turn. Entry points had been carefully chosen, items moved or concealed to mislead investigators, and behaviors left behind that suggested knowledge of police procedures. Evidence was manipulated with precision, creating a scenario in which the true sequence of events could only be reconstructed through painstaking work. Even seasoned detectives found themselves challenged by the level of foresight and the attention to detail displayed. The crime appeared almost clinical in its execution, a disturbing reflection of someone who had studied the mechanics of crime in theory and applied it in practice with unnerving accuracy. The professor's insights became invaluable as investigators tried to understand this complexity. He explained that Bryan's analytical skills could account for both the meticulous planning and the detached, risk-embracing tendencies. It was not simply a matter of intent. It was a methodical assessment of outcomes, consequences, and contingencies. Each action seemed designed not only to achieve a goal but to test boundaries, a psychological puzzle that complicated the investigation. Experts speculated on the mind behind the crime, acknowledging the difficulty of reconciling intellectual brilliance with the capacity for cold, calculated harm. As the story unfolded publicly, the community grappled with shock and fear. Ordinary neighbors who had once felt safe now questioned every interaction, every student or young adult in their midst. The case became a study in human psychology as much as law enforcement, revealing how curiosity, intelligence, and obsession could combine to produce behavior that defies expectation. Every revelation seemed to deepen the mystery, challenging the notion that anyone could truly be understood, even by those closest to them. Ultimately, the investigation highlighted an unsettling reality. The combination of intellect, obsessive curiosity, and detachment from empathy can create a dangerous mix. The more authorities uncovered, the clearer it became that the crime was not only about physical acts, but about understanding and manipulating human behavior. The city remained on edge, haunted not only by the tragedy itself, but by the terrifying insight into a mind capable of planning and executing such an intricate and devastating crime. The aftermath of the crime left a community reeling, its sense of safety shattered, and its residents struggling to comprehend what had happened. Families mourned, friends grappled with disbelief, and neighbors wondered how someone they had known or thought they had known could commit such a deliberate act of violence. The city, once quiet and ordinary, now carried the weight of fear and suspicion, its streets and homes marked by an invisible tension. Everyone who had been touched by the story found themselves asking the same haunting questions. Could this have been prevented? And how well could anyone truly know another person? The professor's interview offered insight, though not comfort. He spoke of warning signs, of curiosity pushed to dangerous extremes, and of the importance of balancing intellect with empathy. He emphasized that brilliance alone does not guarantee morality, and that detachment from human consequences can transform a gifted mind into a tool capable of calculated harm. His words resonated not only within the academic world but across the wider community, forcing people to reconsider how intelligence, obsession, and isolation can intersect in ways that are difficult to detect until tragedy strikes. Law enforcement continued its work, sifting through evidence, analyzing behavior, and seeking answers. Each revelation added to the complex portrait of the perpetrator, revealing someone capable of both extreme precision and moments of unpredictability. The case became a study not just in crime solving, but in human psychology, illustrating how understanding patterns and anticipating reactions can be applied in terrifyingly effective ways. It was a stark reminder that knowledge and skill, when divorced from empathy, can become dangerous forces. In the broader community, the impact lingered long after the headlines faded. Schools, neighbors, and families were left to grapple with the unsettling reality that outward appearances can be deceiving. The quiet student who had once moved unnoticed through university halls now served as a chilling example of the hidden potential for darkness within seemingly ordinary individuals. Parents questioned how to recognize subtle signs of obsession or detachment, and educators reflected on the fine line between encouraging intellectual curiosity and guiding it toward responsible paths. Ultimately, the story of Bryan Kohberger became a cautionary tale, a reminder that intelligence and curiosity are double-edged, capable of inspiring both greatness and devastation. The professor's revelations, the intricate investigation, and the community's struggle to comprehend the events all underscored a central truth. The human mind is complex, often unknowable, and sometimes capable of unimaginable acts. The case left the city scarred, but it also left questions that would linger far longer than the news cycle, forcing society to confront uncomfortable truths about awareness, responsibility, and the shadows that can hide in plain sight.